I'd like to welcome you to our very first colloquium of the spring 2013 session. Again, we do 3 of these, so this is our first one, and again, it's called Emerging Technologies and Trends in the Library World. And it is a panel discussion, as you all know. And here's our panel, and here's our moderator, and I'll be introducing you to those people in a moment. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to the event and also to our online students. We have probably 30 or 40 people online right now who are watching us streaming all over the world. So again, welcome to you guys. We're very pleased to have you here. I'd also like to thank RU Libraries for co-sponsoring this event and by providing this lovely space for us, and also to Lissa, which has provided us with the food and the little reception. So thank you for that. Our format for tonight is a panel discussion, and so it's going to take place, it's going to happen a little bit like this. Maria is going to come on, she's going to introduce the speakers, and each one of the speakers is going to give an opening statement. It's supposed to be 5 minutes, that should be a challenge, but we will try and keep everyone on time for that. As soon as that's done, we're going to go into the actual panel discussion. Maria has 3 different questions. We're going to be asking each of the speakers to address each of the questions from their own point of view. I would like you to hold your questions until the question and answer period, which will follow directly after that. The reason I want you to hold your questions is because we, again, are streaming this live, and we can't really, we're trying to make it as high quality an experience for our online students as possible. So you should have all had got little note cards, and if you have a question that comes up or you think of something while you're listening to the speakers, jot it down, and during the Q&A period, I'll ask those questions for you. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Marie Radford. Dr. Radford is the chair of the LIS Department and an associate professor at Sky. Prior to this, from 2002 to August 2004, she was the acting dean at Pratt Institute in New York City. She is a prolific author and interdisciplinary scholar with interests in LIS as well as interpersonal communication and cultural studies. And I might add, a really good keyboard player for the professors, so just in case you ever see that. Her research focus is on interpersonal communication and reference encounters, which are face-to-face and in virtual environments. She's also interested in nonverbal communication, media stereotypes of librarians and libraries, and she received the 2010 ALA RUSA Mudge Award for Distinguished Contributions to Reference Services. And she was recently awarded with Lynn, help me out, Lynn Conaway of the OCLC, the 2013 Elise Bowden S. Warner Research Award for their paper, Not Dead Yet, a longitudinal study of query type and ready reference accuracy in live chat and IM reference. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Marie Radford.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction, Kai. So I'm going to be the moderator for tonight, and probably my role is wrangler as much as anything else, because we have 3 incredibly talented panelists for you today. I'll introduce them one by one, starting with J.P. Porcaro. He's going to be representing and speaking from the perspective of academic libraries this evening. He's head of acquisitions at the Guarini. We're all like challenged by these words. Guarini Library at New Jersey City University in Jersey City. He was a 2010 ALA Emerging Leader, a 2012 Library Journal Mover and Shaker. He's currently president of the NJLA Emerging Technology Section and ALA's Games and Gaming Roundtable, and serves on the NJLA Executive Board. JP connects librarians to each other via social events and spaces like ALA Dance Party and the ALA Think Tank, and owns some of the funnest library URLs like 8bitlibrary.com and librarianwardrobe.com, which I have appeared on, thanks to JP. JP is a 2006 graduate of Sky, yes? I think, in this room?
In this room, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Had his first class in this room. I also had him for reference, what a thrill. And he has numerous other degrees and is very, very interested in really making these deep connections in the field, which kind of generates a lot of innovation and creativity. Next we have Joyce Valenza. She's going to be speaking from the perspectives of school libraries this evening. Currently Joyce is a librarian for the Springfield Township High School in Springfield, PA, but, drum roll please, January 2014, Joyce is joining our faculty. We can't wait, we cannot wait, so we're dragging her here at every opportunity. PR to follow, press releases are being written as we speak. For 10 years, she was the Tech Life at School columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. She currently blogs for School Library Journal. Her never-ending search blog won an EduBlogs Award twice and was nominated 3 additional times. She was awarded the AASL Highsmith Research Grant in 2005. She's a Milken Educator, an American Memory Fellow, and a Teacher with Primary Sources Fellow. She was selected as Technology and Learning's 100 at 30 and won the 2011 EduBlogs Lifetime Achievement and the Educational Hashtag Award for hashtag TICHAT. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. TLCHAT. Okay. Joyce's PhD comes from the University of North Texas. She is a founder of the School Library Geek Tribe. I can't pronounce any of this stuff. TLNing, TL Virtual Cafe, Pathfinder Swap, School Library Websites, and TL Guide. Joyce is the author of Power Tools, Power Research Tools, and Power Tools Recharge for ALA editions. Next we have Alan McGinley. He is representing public libraries this evening. He's the head of user services at Piscataway, New Jersey Public Library, very close by here. Alan is a 2006 graduate with an MSIS degree from the College of Computing and Information at SUNY Albany. He's known for his creative programming ideas and his dedication to the public library as a community space. He's also, along with JP, they were in the same class of Library Journal Mover and Shakers. His Bridging Gaps approach applies to other collaboration as well. In 2010, he created the Unconference Libraries Connect for the libraries of Middlesex, New Jersey, a free one-day forum for library professionals at all levels to discuss topics selected that very morning by the participants. The event is now in its 3rd year. For the 2011 New Jersey Library Association Conference, he organized the Future of Libraries Unconference and the New Librarian and Library Schools Student Shindig. He is also one of the creators of the American Library Association's think tank, which with more than 600 members bills itself as Facebook's largest active group for information sharing among librarians. So, now that I'm done, we're out of time. All right, so without further ado, we're going to start first. We're going to go the same order of the introduction. We're going to start first with JP with his opening remarks.
Okay.
Before you can start, one thing. I forgot to do one thing. Sorry, I forgot to do one thing, which is to introduce our online class facilitator, which is Michael McWilliams. Michael, turn your camera around so your online people can see you. And Michael is going to be, again, facilitating and being the voice of our online students. So they'll be actually sending him questions to the speakers as well. So again, sorry for the interruption. Take it away, JP.
All right, great. Thanks, you guys, for coming. All right, so when I was thinking about what I would say as far as, I have to represent academia, I'm not really representing academia. I'm a librarian in an academic library, you know. The thing that I have a problem with, kind of what I was just saying to Alan about doing, I'm the academic person, she's the school library person, he's the public library person. It's just that there's so much like overlap between everything that we're doing, right? And so we were chatting about a little bit at dinner and right before we started, we're chatting a little bit about innovation, right? Innovation in libraries. And so that's how I tie it to tonight's theme is tech stuff. And when I thought about, well, what am I doing in my library that's so cool that they want me to come out and do this? I mean, especially with Joyce and Alan, and I'm like, what am I doing? But then as I really thought about who we are as librarians and what we represent in our larger community, right? So in my case, it's academic, is that we are really at the forefront of innovation, right? So don't believe anyone that might say, oh, like, you know, librarians are, you know, the past, or, you know, we're not relevant, all of those kind of things. Because what I'm seeing in my experiences is that we are really taking sort of pop technology, kind of the stuff we're seeing on TV, and we're using it in maybe a more meaningful way, and we're sort of being examples for the rest of our community about like how to be digital citizens, right? Digital citizenship is going to be a really hot issue in K through 12. I mean, it already is, but I think as we move forward, the idea of being a citizen in a digital space is really one of those things that we're at the forefront of, right? So when I think about what I'm doing on campus right now, is that we have an academic computing department and we have an IT department, but I get the emails from the deans, I get the emails from the different departments about, hey, we want you to come out and talk tech at XYZ thing we're doing here on campus. And it's really, I think, because librarians are really understanding those human connections, right? Those human connections. So I might bite off some of the things, you could talk about all that cool stuff that's going on in your class. But I mean, we are almost organically building these little communities with each other. And that is then sort of sending out a signal to the rest of the world, like, okay, these guys know what they're doing, or these ladies, I don't want to say guys, those people know what they're doing. Let's talk to them. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not being loud enough. So, I'll get those emails from the team, like, can you come out to, the all-university thing and talk about this tech or that tech? And I think that's where we're moving forward as far as technology and libraries goes. Also, one thing I really think is really cool about library conferences, I don't know how it is at LIS or those sort of related conferences, but I mean, if you go to a library conference, there is just so much connection, right? You know everybody there via like the Twitter hashtags, the blogs, the parties, all of that. So you've got this sort of full-on like human experience. Let me plug ALA Think Tank again. Alan and I founded it with a bunch of other librarians, some from California, some from Mississippi State Library. ALAthinktank.com. It's Facebook's largest group for discussion about libraries on Facebook. We mostly have a lot of fun, but we also talk about a lot of cool stuff. She said 600 because that's what was in the article, but we're getting close to 3,000. So wow. If you guys can all join, that would be cool. Yeah, we're getting there. I'd love to see 30,000, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And I think that's sort of like a microcosm for what we're doing in the full-on library community. I don't want to go on too long. That was close enough to 5 minutes, right? 2 minutes.
You have 2 minutes left.
I have 2 minutes left. As far as academia goes, the other thing that I think that is really cool that academic librarians are doing in particular is using our, oh, is that not on? Oh! Yeah! Now I hear an echo. The other really cool thing I think that we're doing is we're taking assessment, which is a really boring topic in my opinion, but it's a really hot topic in academic circles. You need all this assessment stuff to get your certification. And we're absolutely at the forefront of like really meaningful assessment activities. The stuff coming out of the information literacy, community in academia, in my opinion, is just influencing assessment across academia. I mean, again, I really think that the info-lit people, I'm not huge on info-lit, but I think the work that they're doing is just really like just powering innovation across academic circles. So I'd say, and real cool stuff too, like the gaming stuff. I'm president of the ALA's Games and Gaming Roundtable. Our forum at Midwinter was mostly on all these cool assessment models that are coming out, just using games. We're just talking games, and how we can use that as a tool. Yeah, so I can go on and on. Okay. I'm good with that.
Thank you, JP.
All right.
Thank you.
So after I get back to my room tonight, I will invite everybody from TL Chat onto the ALA Think Tank, and it would grow like crazy.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited.
ALAthinktank.com redirects.
All right, we'll do that. Okay. So, in a second. All right. So, when I was invited to come here tonight, I started thinking about what the trends were, and I know that so many of us are at the beginning of implementing a lot of exciting stuff. In fact, I don't think there's been a more exciting time in my entire 35 years as a librarian than right now. The possibilities are just endless. And so I believe, as Lincoln did, that the best way to predict the future is to create it yourself. And I think what's really interesting to me, and I think that I heard that in what JP was saying, is that there's no textbook for modern practice. There's no textbook for future practice. We're playing, we're inventing. There's a sandbox out there right now that looks like librarianship. We're making sense of what is available to us, and we're looking at that for how we can direct learning, invention, and innovation on the parts of all our communities. And that is a pretty exciting thing. So we moved from a transactional space like that, where books were our only brand, to a different type of space. And this is a piece I wrote for School Library Journal back in January when everybody was doing their top 10 predictions. And so some of the stuff in this little presentation is in that article. We have other people to guide us, like the Horizon Project for academic and K-12 and other environments. They're making all sorts of predictions for what we're going to see in the next year, the next 2 or 3 years, and the next 5 or 10 years. I am absolutely in love with Howard Rangold's NetSmart. I use it as a textbook for the course I'm currently teaching. And this is, in a nutshell, what NetSmart is about. Things like digital citizenship, things like curation, we'll be talking about that stuff. But each chapter of Rangold's has an infographic like this that describes, in a nutshell, what to think about. In terms of the school library, where I'm specifically talking about tonight, we've moved to the notion of the learning commons, and all of these things are words that describe what school library looks like and will look like. As I said, we've moved from an institution that was largely transactional, that looked a little bit like a grocery store. You came in, you paid for something, you got it, you brought it home, to an institution that is far more transformational, where people learn, people make change, people create, people innovate in the library. And so the model is not so much a grocery store as a kitchen, the space where everybody participates, where librarians are embedded in classrooms and communities, where collection looks nothing like what you saw before, where these verbs are part of our everyday lives. I love the work of Henry Jenkins, who talks about participatory culture. There's no space on earth that represents participatory culture as much as the library. So this year we changed our reference area to a transactional space, from the transactional space to a transformational space, to a hacker kind of maker space. And I asked the kids to design it, and I asked the kids to name it, and they named it the Creative Commons. And I asked the Creative Commons people what they thought about it, and they said, go for it. And so all sorts of production, dance, thinking, video making, everything but what Alan's going to share with you is going on in that space. Because I want my kids to participate not only in our school, not only in our library, but in the larger society. And I want to model that in our library. I'm inspired by the work of Malala, who proved that student voices count. And I want my kids to participate in the same way. They have audience now. Learning is connected. Informal learning is something librarians can be involved in on the academic, public, or school library level. I want to point my kids to MOOCs. I want to point them to opportunities where they can earn digital badges that are meta-tagged with their achievements. I want to lead them to all the open educational resources that can enrich their lives, whether or not they're tested, whether or not they're in our curricula. Reading is social, and I've discovered that over the last 3 years more than I've ever seen before. My kids are communicating with authors, they're sharing suggestions with each other. They come in the morning with their laptops and their tablets saying, I read about this in Goodreads, do we have it here, can we get it here, I don't care what format it's in, I just heard about it and I want it, and they recommend to each other in a social way. I don't know if this video is going to work, but 2 weeks ago, the kids, just after reading Big Brother, decided to contact Cory Doctorow, and then he visited the library in the evening. We met with him while he was in California, and I don't know if the video is working. But basically all it does is Cory comes into the room, the kids ask these questions, they're so excited. He's their hero. He's their gaming hero, he's their author hero, and he's as near as he could possibly be. I'm going to skip a couple of slides. This is my favorite story of last year. Ross and I were in Doha at the IASL conference, and I got this email from Shannon, who's the girl with the big smile in the background, and Shannon was doing a lit crit project on a new poet, Sonia Renee Taylor. And so, the slide, I think the next slide has the email that she sent me while I was in Doha, and she said, Dr. V, Sonia Renee Taylor can come and visit our library and do a poetry reading via Skype. And she said, can we do it? Can we do it? Well, Shannon organized this whole thing while I was out of the country, got all these kids together, kids who were interested in poetry, who want to stay beyond class hours, all because what she was learning was popping out of the poetry books, popping out of the web, and feeling human to her. So she made this connection. She's friends with the poet now. This whole little group of student poets had the most exciting day of their lives, probably, and interacted with this wonderful poet who promised not to get me fired with her poetry. It's pretty interesting stuff. We've had visits from women's rights leaders from Afghanistan. This is Soraya Paksat. She's come in after the students read 1,000 Splendid Suns. We are curating ourselves, pulling together these open educational resources, and also showing kids that search is not just about Google, that they can use curation tools for personal knowledge management and to search in a far more effective way than perhaps Google could ever do for them, because the search, there are people out there with niche interests, people who are experts, who've already done the heavy lifting in search, and who really can kind of pull the important stuff, or the things that are personally interesting for you. And you can actually manage your own knowledge management system. I'm babbling. You can, if you're interested, say, in Game of Thrones, if you're interested in gaming of any sort, you can pull together the stuff that people are writing about and thinking about, and curate it for yourself and a community that you share out online. I believe that these are inadequate containers for student thinking and student research, and that students need to know how to curate. That all this stuff is out there that will not fit into those loose leaf binders. And all this educational stuff is going to make their world better, and that they can learn with or without us. I prefer to help and guide them. These are the tools that they can use for curation. This is what I used myself recently when I got my haircut. I did my research, and instead of bringing in a folder of little clippings of what somebody could do with curly hair, I pinned every favorite curly hairstyle, brought it into the stylist, and he knew exactly what I wanted because I was able to curate. Curation is a real-life skill. We're learning from a recent Pew study that our patrons, our customers, our members are connecting to us with mobile devices more than they ever have before. I want to be there. I want to be the third place for our students. I know that the kids are connecting with, it's not only a bring your own device, it's a choose your own device. I want to be there on every possible platform my students are using. I want to have outlets and drops if the wireless is not working everywhere in the library. I want the library to be in every child's pocket. This is the prototype of our mobile site, but I really want it to be better. I also want the library to be flipped. How many of you have been playing around with flipping the classroom? Yeah. I think libraries should be flipped. I think that every bit of instruction that I do should be available at home. I think that I should be helping teachers to prepare instruction that sticks around and is around when my students are trying to access it at 2 in the morning, that my Pathfinders and my LibGuide guides are available, that they share my instructional voice, that my voice sounds exciting and engaging, and they want to visit library even if it's not when library is physically open. And so I'm using these tools both with my K-12 students and my graduate students to provide engaging instruction so that my voice is always there and that they can share what they're learning 24/7 with their own communities. And so libraries flipped, my library school is flipped. And I think this is William Gibson's, the future is already here, it's not evenly distributed. And when I think about my lovely suburban library and what's going on in your academic and your public library, I think that it's not necessarily an equitable scene. And that if we're really thinking about the future, we need to think about the kids out there, the adults out there who don't have access to a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight. And that there really is no box for library, and we're inventing it. We're not thinking outside the box, we're inventing something that is really a box at all. When I think about library, I don't want to be a pawn, I want to be the chess player. I want to decide what library looks like. Dave Lanke says what my killer profession is not ebooks, Amazon, or Google, but a lack of imagination. We need a new activist librarianship focused on solving the grand challenges of our community. No more prizes for predicting rain, prizes only for building arcs. And as Seth Godin says, we need librarians more than we ever did. You can read the end of the quote. So I am truly excited about the future.
Thanks, Joyce. Next we have Alan.
I have no slides, but I do have a video that I'm going to show you real quick at the end. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm just curious, I'm going to talk really specifically about makerspaces, so I'm just curious who has had any interaction, whether they've read about it or they've been to one, okay, so maybe like a third people. The reason I'm talking about makerspaces today is because we just finished launching a makerspace at the library I work at, which is Piscataway Public Library. It's really close. If you want to come check out our space, I'd love to do a tour with the students here at SCNI. I think that makerspaces is a really big trend right now in public libraries. A lot of it is conceptual. I know that we researched ours for quite a long period of time before we kind of launched anything, but I think that you're going to start to see more of these spaces coming to be in public libraries. Just to give you a quick idea of what our space consists of, we have a 3D printer, we do electronics programming with Arduino, then we also have like sewing machines, we have a button maker, we do digital music creation, and we have a heating press and a vinyl cutter, which is actually what I used to make this cool t-shirt. So that's what we're working with. What I really love about the makerspace is I feel like what we've gone for is kind of an intersection of traditional crafting and new technologies. So that's why you see like the 3D printer, but you also see, I mean, the sewing machines. We just did our first sewing workshop this week, and we actually had to turn people away from it. The button maker was one of the most popular things that we had, you know, at the launch of our makerspace. So making is nothing new in public libraries, whether it's storytime crafts or jewelry making with teens or you know, knitting groups with adults. I mean, this is something we've already been doing. But I do think that the makerspace gives us an opportunity to take these kind of hands-on experiences and infuse it with technology and really create something that create an environment where, you know, creativity can be nurtured and we can really kind of harness this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, which I think you know, makes libraries contemporary, relevant, cutting edge, but also provides people of all ages with skills that allow them to compete and prepare them for education and jobs in the 21st century. I also wanted to share something that I came across recently that I thought was pretty cool. So shortly after he was elected in 2009, President Obama gave this speech at the National Academy of Sciences. And what he did was he called on the science, technology, and engineering communities to really encourage young people to create and to build and to invent and to be makers and not just consumers. From what I read of that, which was really pretty short, I didn't see him reference libraries, but I really felt like this spoke directly to what we were trying to do in my own library. And so now when, you know, I talk to people and they're like, well, you know, why a makerspace in a public library? I said, because the president said so. I've also been really overwhelmed with the number of people who were at our launch and who have kind of come out to see what we're doing and who are already familiar with the 3D printing or the types of different projects that we're doing in the makerspace. Especially people and adults with engineering backgrounds, manufacturing backgrounds, who see the 3D printer and, you know, talk about how similar it is to the types of things that they did in their background, but it's on this smaller and much more personal level. I feel like, you know, the 3D printing revolution is coming. It seems like every couple of weeks I'm hearing about something really cool in some field that's going on that relates to this. Whether it's medicine, where they're, you know, 3D printing in stem cells, or skin, or bone, or it's fashion. A friend of mine just came back from Fashion Week and said that there was a designer that had actually 3D printed jewelry that they had at Fashion Week. Or it's education. I mean, I was actually surprised to find out from one of the students that the Piscataway school actually does have a 3D printer. They have the older one than us, but you know, they are doing this kind of work in the schools, and so in a way, it's great that like we're there and we're offering these opportunities, but it scares me too, because I mean, the kids are doing all this stuff in schools, and so I don't feel like we're ahead of the curve. I feel like we're just kind of catching up. And the last thing I wanted to say before I show this this quick video is just that I think that the 3D printing revolution is something really important to look at, because I feel like there's a lot of similarities to what I saw in the personal computing revolution of the 80s. And you know, as these things start to come down in price and start to come into places like libraries and schools and start to come into people's homes, I just think we're going to start to see a whole lot more happening with those. Here's our quick little demo. Oh, and at the end, you got to come up and take a look at some of the stuff I brought. So there's no audio, but what you're seeing is this is actually, we're printing the ghost from Pac-Man, and it's actually a cookie cutter. So basically, you'll see what it does is it's laying down these layers of plastic, and each layer builds upon the next. The 3D printer we have is the MakerBot Replicator 2.
Alan, how much do they cost?
This one costs around $1,700. There's as many other 3D printers out there. I felt like MakerBot was the most kind of like consumer friendly. It was, you know, ready to go, you know, pretty quickly out of the box. And if you want to see more about what we're doing, piscatawaylibrary.org/MIY, and that is it.
Okay, thank you very much. And almost yearly time, nearly on time.
Can I plug one thing before we move on?
Yes,
about
please do.
One more thing with the maker stuff. The American Library Association, one of the newest member interest groups, is related to this whole thing. And Maker, the actual one that makes the replicator machine, they're actually offering a discount if you buy it through the member interest group of the ALA for your library. So look into that, and that's one of those things that grew out of the think tank actually. Like two of the people that started a think tank with me and Dre and Patrick, they're like co-chairing this little member interest group about it. So there's a lot of support coming out of the American Library Association if you really want to look into it a little bit more.
So how many of you have heard of 3D printing already or know something about it? There's an amazing TED Talk on 3D printers, which is the way that I first heard about it like back a year ago. But if you search under TED Talk and 3D printers, and sometimes it's a little hard to think about how this is going to revolutionize a lot of our manufacturing. But if you can download a blueprint from the web and print things out rather than going and buying things, this is at a much reduced cost. This is what's going to be happening in our lives, is happening already in our lives. Okay, so here's what I want to do is we want to throw this out.
Just another quick plug. This is going to be all plugs the rest of the time. I'm sorry.
All plugs all the time.
There is a Facebook group. If you're interested more in makerspaces and seeing what other libraries out there are doing, there's a Facebook group called Makerspaces and Participatory Library that has about 300 people active in it, and there's a lot of cool stuff happening there.
Can I just say one thing? This is not a normal panel. I mean, it's hard. You're not usually on a panel where people are so excited they can't hold back this is an exciting time to be in this practice, and we're all thrilled to share with you. So that's all I want to say.
So actually what I was going to do is forget about the questions that we actually wrote and throw it open to what are some of the things that you see as the most important trends that are impacting libraries today, and perhaps some of the commonalities that you're already hearing in the group. What do you need?
I stole one of his cards, which I didn't realize it was his cards. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I wrote notes on it.
You wrote notes on the other pretenders.
Yeah, sorry about that. I apologize.
All right. How do you feel about that question? What are some of the most important trends that you see? I know there were some that were really hit already, but
can I jump in? I mean,
just jump in.
Yeah, right along with what Joyce was saying about self-directed learning. Like one of my sort of not librarian heroes is this guy James Paul G. He's huge in the gaming community. One of the quotes that he always said that really stuck with me is that libraries are almost a competition to the traditional classroom, because the library is a place that you go when you need to learn something and you can find it, right away. So it's like learning on demand, exactly what you need to know, exactly when you need to know it. And I see libraries in particular as being one of those places that self-directed learning, which is sort of huge in K through 12, as being sort of the innovator of self-directed learning. We've always been the place that was for self-directed learning. One of the things that I talk a lot on gaming, right? So I always give the example of like my little kid, he's 8 now, he plays Pokemon. He is doing such really cognitively advanced stuff, way more difficult, way more, I guess cognition is the best word for it, than he's taking home for his homework. The same thing goes with playing Minecraft, and he'll go on YouTube and look up the videos and stuff. And I find like all the gaming stuff going on in libraries is really, sorry to keep plugging gaming is my thing. Like it's really going to be one of those things we should all keep going with. It's sort of pretty much accepted now. But just because libraries as a place for self-directed learning, and kind of just really fits with gaming stuff. Sorry.
I was just saying me thing. We're just going to just jump in.
Okay. Yeah.
Fight for the mic. So when I remember my first job as a school librarian, I had brought in a chessboard, and very soon the principal came in and said, "What do we have here?" It was a chessboard. They said there will be no playing of board games in the library. And I was like, well, you're not here most of the times. But that's a kind of, I think that's a little taste of some of the pushback. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
What, the United States' oldest chess group that is still around is out of a public library. It was like the late 1800s. But there was some
this was 1773. So.
Okay. Anyway. Okay, so are we moving on?
No, I'm still wanting to hear about what you think are the important trends or some of the commonalities.
Something that I really like, that we're just going to talk about everything great that Joyce said.
Right.
I wish I had more time to talk about these things. So this is perfect.
This is your time.
Yeah, okay, great. What did I say?
Well, this was, I'm not thinking so much as libraries, like with our, patrons, or maybe I am, but especially, librarians as professionals, when you talked about the sandbox. Because I feel like there's so much freedom now to create the things that you want to see in libraries and have the type of relationships with other professionals that you want to have. And I'm always telling students that there's no boundaries, no visible boundaries between you and professional librarians and the people doing the work that you're interested in. Whether it's Twitter or Facebook or these different groups. I mean, you can go out there and have those conversations. So I love that idea of the sandbox and just the ability to create different things within your library and also within your different professional networks.
More and more, I think that the notion of participation has been really important. More and more, the kids are making things for their library. They're creating the posters, they're making the videos, they're creating their portfolios, they're contributing to the knowledge management of the school, and they're making a difference. I'll have a teacher who says, I need something, Joyce, can you help me with it? And I'll have a team of students address it. And they'll do a better job than the teacher or I could have done. And they're learning and they're feeling like they have audience for their work, and that's really powerful. They can come into the library and do pretty much anything they want to do relating to learning. But I do see a great deal of tension because we're talking about all this great stuff. And in K-12 today, we're also fighting with the testing movement. You know, we're testing kids. Oh, I can't tell you how many tests we have during the course of the school year. So you have this environment where I'm encouraging kids to do the self-directed learning and to make discoveries. And we're also feeling that schools are coming tighter, and some of the stuff that, you know, I value and a lot of my colleagues value are not really necessarily valued by the administration. And so I feel this tension. We have all this capability to do inquiry-based learning, to do project-based learning and problem-based learning, and yet, you know, what is being required of K-12 educators seems in tension with that. Is your 8-year-old facing any of that?
Well, you know, I don't even get me started on our school district. Yeah, I mean, I'd say, going back to the academic end, that's part of my problem with the assessment movement that I see moving forward in academia is sort of really related to the testing stuff in K through 12. And that's why I think possibly we're a little bit better suited to deal with it in academia than K through 12 was. Because again, like the things that I'm seeing coming out of the info-lit people and the assessment people are at least helping to avoid falling into that sort of teaching to the test trap in an academic setting. And so going back to the librarian being innovator, like, you're really fabulous, you know, so you've got this really great library, you know, so that's one thing, just be really great when you get out of here and you get into a library. When we talk about advocacy, I think that one of the best advocacy tools is to just be really invaluable to your community. That's why you can keep doing all that cool stuff, because you're just so invaluable to your school in particular. So that's sort of a lot of pressure for us, but it's okay, we're cool.
Well, and think broadly about who your community is, because, you know, when you're in public librarianship, you want to be invaluable to the residents, but you also want to be invaluable to the township, to the elected officials. I think sometimes that gets overlooked, and, you know, you have to, if you do work that they want to see that they value, I feel like they will be more supportive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a haves versus have-nots situation. We could have a whole nother colloquium on this question. Because in one situation, us as librarians are serving the have-nots, right? And that's not necessarily the decision makers. So we're sort of like serving everyone except the decision makers, and the decision makers are like, oh, that 3D printer is just $1,700. Just go buy one yourself, you know, for a library. I don't know. I mean,
I think with the assessment movement, I mean, one of the areas that is becoming more and more apparent is this idea of proving the value. That the value of public libraries as a community space, as a space for, you know, sort of the leveling of the playing field and so forth was always accepted. But nowadays it's sort of like, you know, the public library has to prove the value, the high school library, the academic library. What is it that is your value added?
Another in the academic setting, if I actually wrote a note down. One way that we're sort of asserting influence outside of the traditional library circle is the idea of embedded librarianship, which you mentioned. And embedded librarianship is getting really big, at least in the circles that I'm in. And basically what that is you'll have, it's different everywhere, but sort of the basic idea is you're taking a class, undergrad, grad class. It's not a library class, you're just taking a class. And you'll actually have sort of a librarian assigned to that class to sort of help the students get through it. So I've seen, one of the really cool ways I've seen embedded librarianship be applied is like the class will have a hashtag. And so that librarian will just kind of monitor that hashtag on Twitter and then just be able to get the stuff that, you know, they need. So again, us being really creative people, you know, everyone becomes a librarian because you're into inquiry, we're into, like, you know, thinking and creating and all of that. We're really well equipped to be able to make those changes and be able to figure out, all right, you know, how can we embed ourselves in this and that? And then, you know, and then when you think about the word embedded, it's kind of hard to pull it out once you're embedded in there. So I think that's another sort of valuable movement, sort of a valuable idea, at least as we move forward in libraries, is to embed ourselves in things, you know.
And that's very visible. It's visible to the colleagues you work with outside library, and it's visible to the community. So when I answer an email or connect with a student on Twitter or collaborate with a student on a Google Doc or Google app, a parent sees that. And the caring that demonstrates, it may take me 1 minute to do a little bit of an edit on somebody's Google Prezzo. But that effort, that 1 minute effort, is reported back to the parents and often to a school board member. And that kind of currency really sticks around, and it's meaningful. And it's so easy for us to be a connected part of that learning right now. Unions might not like that too much, but it's part of my life.
Something that makes me think of that I feel like we could, fold into, what's going on in emerging technologies is like new methods of communication with people. I feel like in the public library, one thing that we started doing is our text-to-question service. And I had a patron come in the other night, and she came up and she said, "Oh, the library texted me that you have this book." And I was like, "Oh, that was me." And she was so excited about the fact that she'd been texted, the fact that it was a real person. And now I've seen her come in several times, and she always texts us, do you have this movie before she comes in? And it was something that was really easy to do. We did it for free. We have multiple people that help with that.
Is there any other institution, Alan, that gets that kind of personal connection in that way? You used to waiting in line at the store, but that actually just kind of breaks through all the stuff that you have to deal with every day. And breaks through the notion of like you're on hold with like 3 or 4 different lines before you actually get a human, and here you are, you're using technology and you're using it to really directly connect, to make a human connection, and that's special. It's good.
It is, and even if it's, we probably do like maybe 10 texts a week, but even if we're doing a smaller number volume-wise, the fact that one person was super excited about something that happened, with the public library, that to me makes it.
Some of that's like the sort of the wow factor. And I was doing some consulting at a suburban library in New Jersey recently that is a very, very well-funded library. They were doing this thing, I couldn't believe this, because I know Monroe has a drive-through window, but what they were doing was soccer moms, like after school, when they needed a book or something that their kid forgot, some item that their kid forgot, they were calling the library and they were pulling up, and the librarians were actually running out. They were actually, hi Leslie. Leslie from the Newark Public Library. They were actually running out of the building with this book and throwing it in as like the mother's like sort of driving by. It's like, this is like really funny, because they were calling like, "I'm on the way, and my kid forgot, red badge of courage, I'm coming in, okay, boom, here it was." I was like, wow. And they said, "Oh, this is just part of our regular service. We just do this all the time." And people, the recognition that people's time has really become kind of crazy, which is, another story. But the idea of a drive-up window, the idea of texting is really a huge wow factor when it's sort of underutilized. People haven't figured it out exactly what role texting and other mobile technologies are going to be having. So this is kind of evolving.
Can I say 3 things about that? The first thing is that, okay, so we're doing texting now, and you said, where else do you see someone doing that level of service? And you don't really see it yet, right? So libraries, when I think back to my history in libraries, because I grew up in the library, I'm probably one of the youngest people in the room still. I grew up in the library. Sorry dudes. Anyway, no, but okay, so going back to my kids, they just have a website now for their school. That's kind of like a new thing. For us in libraries, how long have we had a website? We just take those kind of things for granted, right? We've just had websites forever. And that's just now kind of, hitting my kid's school district at least. And so with the texting stuff, I was a little bit reluctant, because Alan and I discussed this a lot. When I pitched it to my staff, they were like, "Oh yeah, sure, let's go for it." And embracing that mobile stuff is just going to be avoidable for culture. We've embraced it before everyone else. And I want to say something to Leslie that you told me once. I'm sorry, and because it always stuck with me, and I say it all the time. It's you know, I hear a lot of librarians complain about people kind of like, you know, you be at the reference desk and someone will pick up their phone, and Leslie's like, you know, that's okay. That's just the world we live in. And when they get off the phone, then we can just finish our interaction. And I'm like, yeah, if we can just be like, yeah, that's the way it is now. That's cool. So that's sort of my little advice that I tell everyone when they start complaining about cell phones in the library. It's like, hey man, we all have cell phones. It's okay. Whenever the students come to the desk, I'm like, I'll go ahead, take your call. I'll still be here.
Was that your 3 things?
That was my 3 things.
I think when you're in school, it looks a little different, though. I think
Oh
that,
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You know, I struggle with this, and I don't really know what policy should look like. But I know there are times I want to connect with a person, and when I'm telling a good story, I don't want you tweeting while I'm doing that. And so I think I think that we're responsible as educators, all of us, to kind of get people to understand how we feel when somebody is tweeting and you're trying to really pay attention to them. Maybe, you know, I feel like an old-fashioned lady, but you know.
Sorry, I called out Leslie now.
I know I'm not supposed to do this.
Okay.
I don't think we have.
No, go ahead. It's okay.
You have to have a mic, because there's a lot of people who are not physically present. That's why we need the mics.
You want a chair?
I'm not known for my booming voice.
I heard the unconference is the unpanel.
Yeah.
It's true what I said to JP. I'm okay with whatever people are. I'm happy to see them at my library. On the other hand, like Joyce, sometimes I'll go, I'm a jealous woman. You can talk to that person anytime. Now, you're mine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I just want to say that Leslie was part of the pilot study for Texas Librarian in New Jersey, so she's like really all about it. I want to turn this a little bit before we run out of this time, because then we're going to open it up for the audience, which is to ask the panel about implications for careers in LIS. This is a group of people who are, if they're not already, soon will be out of the job market. And so what are some of the implications for the students in the audience about what emerging technology, I mean, none of you have the title of emerging technology librarians, but dealing, I guess, a career in this moment of all of these merging technologies and new stuff that's coming at us, what would you have to say about some of those implications?
I think you should have a super duper electronic portfolio. You should knock an employer's socks off with what you've written, what you've created, the digital stories. There's no excuse for not having a really rich portfolio right now, and you'll shine. And to talk about your excitement about what the possibilities are for creating new experiences for members of all libraries. Did I tell you I was excited about this stuff? But you can't go in saying, oh gee, I don't know what to do with ebooks, or we come in with a plan. Here's what it will look like when I'm in our library, and here's what it will look like for the senior citizens, and here's what it will look like for those kindergartners, and here's what pajama story time looks like today. I mean, and have those pictures of what you've done before be part of that portfolio experience.
And all of the students starting this last semester are creating an e-portfolio as part of this program, so this is what Joyce is talking about. It's not just something, a hoop you have to jump through to finish our program. It's really going to be creating your own future and your own marketability.
And one of the things I've been talking to my kids about, your tweets are going to last for 2 years right now. So make those tweets work for you. Your tweets are your business card. You have a lot of business cards, and your business cards are not those little blue cards, or they're not the professionally printed cards anymore. They're your Rebel Announce page, and your Cred page, and your Twitter stream. And people are looking at that. I would, in the old day, if my kids were little, I wouldn't hire a babysitter without looking at their Facebook page and looking at their Twitter stream. When I meet kids, I want to know what they're up to. I try to find their Twitter stream and find out what they're about. But that represents you.
My big thing is flexibility. I've been a librarian for 6 years, but I mean, things today are so different than they were when I started. And so, I think having a flexibility and having a willingness and almost an expectation to relearn what it is you're doing on a really consistent basis are going to be important.
The job market's really terrible in any profession. It's not unique to librarianship. That I think any profession is talking about how are you getting a job once you're out of your program, right? And so the possibilities are endless. So are you guys into Hack Library School? Some of you guys, have you seen that at least? All right, check out Hack Library School if you're not. Basically, that's just a couple of people that were just like, oh, let's just start up this website about how to, get a little bit more out of library school, and they just did it. And now they have Hack Library School, like, they're coming out with a book, and they've got it on their resume, and it's a really cool thing, and all it took was like, okay, we're gonna do this, and, and we did it. It's the same thing with the think tank. I decided in my own career, if I'm gonna get ahead, I needed to go out to ALA stuff. I couldn't afford it, so we decided, Alan was one of the people, we just decided, let's just do it cheap, we'll rent a house. A bunch of us rented a house, we called it the Think Tech House. And now it grew to this big Facebook group, almost 3,000 people. But it was just like, okay, this is just what we need to do, like you said, be really fabulous.
Yeah, you can hit the start button on anything, there's no preventing you from doing that.
Right, and that goes really, I don't think it's unique to librarianship, I just think that's just the way it goes. So you just gotta be really amazing. Oh, and internships, a lot of internships.
and you know what, a number of my friends have become very well known for finding a niche in which they can blog about, whether it's John Shoemaker and picture books, or it's Gwyneth Jones and technology and libraries, and Buffy does a lot about thinking stuff. But they weren't well known 3 years ago or 4 years ago. All of a sudden, everybody knows them by first name, and it's all because they blogged about something that they're passionate about. And I think showing that you're passionate about something in a job interview, I know when I've interviewed people, after 2 minutes, I know if I'm going to hire them or not. Do they really care? Will they really make a difference? It's not just about what you know, but how excited you are about. I said that 20 times. Sorry about that. And being willing to relocate. I think over the networks today, I saw 4 or 5 job openings, but they weren't all in my local area.
One of the things we heard when we went through our ALA accreditation for this reaccreditation for this program last year, one of the things we heard a lot from employers was this idea of being flexible, as Alan was talking about, being willing to change, being adaptable to change, tolerance for ambiguity, all of these kinds of things, because a lot of the employers said to us, well, we think that even if somebody maybe doesn't have all of the skills that they need, we can train them for that if they have this attitude toward embracing, and I always say, change agent. You're not just flowing with the change and going, okay, it's okay if things change. It's like, I'm going to make this change happen. And that's where I think the real power is. And when you bring that, you bring it like Freddie Mercury to whatever it is that you're doing, and people see that, and then they are anxious to hire you. What JP just said, sort of as a throwaway about internships, many times people get hired out of internships. I've seen it all over my career. But again, you've got to bring it. You have to be present, you have to be game. I have this thing, that we have a bunch of people that I call game. It's like if I ask them to do something, they'll do it, and so other people are not game. You ask them, oh, I can't do that, I don't have any time. I'm like, yeah, I got lots of time, right? I got time coming out of my ears, but it's like, yeah, no, this has to happen, or whatever it is. Time is big. My yoga teacher, time is big, Maria. I'm like, yeah, time is big. I think time is now for us to take some questions. Yes, Connie?
Yeah, that's questions.
I know people have written legibly.
Pretty legibly.
All right, I'm just going to say one thing about volunteer. My thing on volunteer opportunities and internships and finding a job is find someone to let you do the work that you want to do, and then find someone to pay you for it.
Okay. I'm just trying to read a little bit of these cards.
Yes, this is Joyce doing this.
Some of these are really a lot of questions. Okay, let's start with this one. Thanks so much for talking about participation in school and public libraries, but This trend seems dropped in academic libraries. What do you think can be done around this? Do you know about any examples of projects in academic libraries that champion participation?
Well, I mean, you mentioned, Joyce mentioned MOOCs. That's sort of like the thing that we have to talk about every single meeting. If you're not familiar with it, there are these open courses that anyone can sign up for, right? And so I think part of the participatory culture in academia is really around sort of taking the knowledge within the walls and saying it's more valuable than to just the people within the walls. So they're giving away these classes for free. We're seeing all over that journals are deciding we're just gonna open up the journal for free. So now, you know, you've got open journals. So professors will publish their research and it'll just be open. So now, one thing that I think is really cool, beyond just the open journal stuff, is the idea of, instead of even bothering to publish in a journal, is publishing a white paper. Look up white papers if you're not. To me, white paper, unless I need to publish in a journal at some point, I'm only going to publish a white paper. It's a lot more participatory. It's also a lot more creative. It lets you kind of get outside of the sort of the journal like XYZ that you have to follow, and then you can get that participation. But yeah, academia is a very rigid place. I mean, the fact that I was able to get like texting out of the library and hopefully get some gaming stuff. We're taking small steps. We're taking small steps. The other thing too is if you look around this library or a really great academic library, it's not about what the librarian does, but about what the space does. And if you have a space that is like a little plant, right? That, you know, you've got your pot and you've got your dirt, and your students or whoever the community is in academia, they're your seeds. If you've got that space, then you've got that organic place for participatory culture. And I think those are the three ways. But I mean, why did you ask that one?
Conferences all the time.
Yeah, I'm running an unconference this summer on emerging tech with our ed tech department. I'll be the only librarian involved with some of the deans on campus. I'm going to open it up to students, any staff, and yeah, this summer, I've used Facebook to connect with just like the cooler, you know, people that I can chat with in the staff, like lunchroom.
See nerd night happening.
Yeah. Things like that are, you know, me running that unconference also that I'm doing this summer. They've never. Well, you'll be around now. I'll stay in touch with you. You know, that all of a sudden opened up this whole idea. Check out Michelle Boulet's book. Let me plug Michelle Boulet's book. No, it's called Mob Rule Learning. Mob Rule Learning. It's a really great book on unconferences. She is a librarian, but it's not necessarily about libraries. And I've used so many little snippets out of that book that I've taken to the rest of the academic world or my little community that taught me about, like, you know, student-directed learning and self-directed learning and all those things. Yeah. Oh, and I wrote the blurb on the back. That's why I felt
book chat. Oh, cool. Michael, is there a question from online student?
There are two actually. I probably want to do it from the mic so they can hear me. Okay. All right. Stephanie Landy wants to know, how was the Makerspaces Piscataway Library funded?
We applied for a few grants. We actually didn't get the grants. The funding for our makerspace came from board-approved fines, or board-approved funds, mostly our fine accounts.
And I have a follow-up to that one, is how do you advertise Makerspace?
The way we've done online promotion through like Facebook, we do Pinterest and Twitter. But the best promotion I think that we've done is doing print postcards. We just use Vistaprint, and we had a bunch of nice looking postcards like the kind you might find like in a coffee shop, printed out. We got those out into the community. The other thing we did that was really successful, really the most successful, was really partnering with the schools and getting the schools to put our electronic postcard on their website.
Wow, what a great idea. It's always been a struggle to get the schools to partner with the public libraries. It's an ongoing struggle. I have a follow-up question, and then we'll go back to an online question. Has MIY changed the population of people visiting your library or changed the frequency of use by existing patrons? Do you have this data?
I do not. I mean, it's certainly affected. We had 250 people come out to our launch, so it certainly impacted our door count that day. We actually had a line around the outside of the room to get in, and we actually had to stop letting people in at one point because we were getting, to fire code. But as we move forward, we certainly hope that it'll attract new people. But it's also really about engaging the people who are already there and just finding kind of a new way to engage them.
Michael, can we have another online?
Absolutely. This question is from Helene Freeman. I think that Joyce might want to be she might be a good resource. I think all three should probably respond to it, but having seen Joyce's presentation last semester, I was blown away by it myself. But Helene wants to know, what should a digital portfolio look like? And I know last semester when I saw your presentation, the content from your presentation was phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I think it depends upon what type of job you're looking at and what your experience has been. If you've made presentations, your presentations should be part of your digital portfolio. If you've created lesson plans that you shared as a teacher or like teacher librarian, if you've got pathfinders or LibGuides, if you've told digital stories, if people have written you email or letters, are you collecting that sort of thing? What kind of metrics can you share? Why don't you guys jump in?
Yeah, I can answer that just with it should look like you.
Yeah.
So like when someone sees your digital portfolio, it shouldn't just be something that they're looking at. We look at too much stuff every day to begin with. They should get something about you, something very authentic that they can take home and be like, okay, I know this about this person, like very authentic.
Well, I searched both of you before I got to this panel because I didn't remember that we danced together. But I wanted. It was so easy to find out about you. What if you guys kind of funneled that in a way that I discovered what you wanted me to discover rather than what I happened upon, and that it was organic and your real voice showed there, so that you introduced it and you got feedback.
And on a personal level, I don't use my government name, and I was lucky that I was really able to shape my Google search results for the most part around sort of this JP thing. So like if you search my real name, you get a million things, but I was like right at the outset of my career, I was like, okay, what is my Google search results going to look like? And that's when I really just decided to just be like, all right, I'm just going to go with JP.
Yeah.
There's no Google searches for that. You might not have that, luxury, but that's an option. One more sort of swerve. Alan, I'm going to call you out. He's done a lot of work in the last 3 years providing enormous opportunities for students and new librarians in the New Jersey Library Association. So, this is also sort of answering the last question as well. You guys, we all have a whole slew of opportunity to meet people, to build our own, PLN, as you guys, we can build our own personal learning network in the NJLA, as well as, opportunities for presenting poster sessions and things like that of some of the work you're excited about that you've done here. So also when you leave here, I would like you guys to really check out the student rate to join the ALA and the NJLA combined. It's really inexpensive, and also on the ALA end, ALA guarantees you a spot on a committee if you join the membership, right? So you are guaranteed a spot on something. So you have we as associations are giving students and new librarians just an enormous amount of opportunity to build that portfolio.
And I think what Helene is asking about is, we're all wondering, it's a great blog post. Let's start generating what could be part of it, knowing that it's going to look a little different for each of us. Maybe we can all address that. It's kind of non-templatey template.
Yeah.
One of the things I did, Joyce, after you came was there was a place that kind of aggregates, if you put your name in, kind of aggregates all the stuff. I can't remember what it's called.
It's Rebel Mouse. And famous people like politicians, writers all have a Rebel Mouse page. And that's basically what you've read, what you've written over the course of, you know, however much. And you can push the stuff you want people to see to it.
Yeah, I mean, a digital portfolio is cool, but I would also just say, you know, just put good stuff out there.
Right.
Because people do, they Google you. I can't tell you how many times people, you know, tell me before, like they met me, you know, whatever, we emailed and we're gonna meet in person, and when I meet them in person, they're like, oh, you're not wearing your hat. Because there's a picture of me, it comes up a lot where I'm wearing a hat.
That's why I didn't want to say hello to you when you were in the car, because there was no hat.
Exactly.
Be careful, be very careful.
And that's not a bad story. The hat is great, but I'm just, you know, put good stuff out there is also just as good, you know, as a digital portfolio.
I did a lesson yesterday with the junior class, and I was telling them how, do you know that I can really see your tweets, and I have these tools and these tools. And they said, well, what do? We've done some bad stuff, Dr. V. And I said, well, that's okay. Why don't you start putting some good stuff out there? You know, it's okay, because what people are looking for when they look at you is, what's the balance? Like, you know, have you said something nice about somebody? Have you talked about what you've learned? Have you talked about, you know, a hobby of yours? What are you putting out there to show the world about yourself? And you don't need to alter your personality to do this. You just need to stop saying nasty things about people.
That's true.
Here's a question. How does library as an on-demand source of information mesh with learning as a social activity?
Wait, can you repeat that one?
How does library as an on-demand source of information mesh with learning as a social activity?
Oh, I mean, well, sorry to keep plugging ALA Think Tank, but I mean, I think part of the reason why we grew is because what we've got going on in there, and again, please join, is we've got a mix of a really calm social atmosphere. Every couple of weeks we have a thing where everybody posts what they're drinking that night. It's a lot of fun. And then throughout the day, we are discussing any number of issues. So if you hop in there, you'll see, I actually put up a thread a day or two ago about like, hey, what should I say at this thing? What's going on that's really cool in academia? So libraries, or at least librarians, have a lot of opportunity to be both social and learn at the same time. And I think it's the same way. I mean, I was a children's librarian before I was in academia, and the way that I saw it in the public library when I was a children's librarian is that the kids, I had a day where we are gonna play through Super Mario Galaxy. We're gonna beat it in one day. So I had some kids online going on YouTube, figuring out how to beat the levels, and then I had other kids playing through the levels, and so none of the kids could stay the whole day. So it was this social learning atmosphere that it's hard to say that the on-demand learning and the social stuff is separate now. I can't think of an example where it's separate.
There is a mesh in like that Facebook group dynamic, and I think one of the challenges for libraries is how to create that kind of space and that kind of environment for ourselves.
Yeah.
This is sort of a follow-up question, and sort of pretty similar, but a little bit slightly different. So it's fascinating to watch two simultaneous and opposite trends in reference. People want answers, not a sandbox, which answers include librarians doing things or processes for people. But in gaming, people develop their own new learning styles. So it says, you know, any thoughts from us on the panel? And they're especially interested in this for inner city residents.
Oh yeah, before I even answer that, I'd be remiss to say that librarianship needs more diversity, and so let's all keep all the diversity issues in mind when we answer any of these, and I suppose I did a bad job of that tonight. But yeah, the inner city stuff for sure is really important. And you know, boy, you know, maybe someone else could do this while I like.
But I would imagine that that your university is very diverse.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a very non-traditional, I mean, we don't have, like, you know, you get out of high school and you're 18 years old and then you go to college. It's a really diverse place. Oh, and so, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I take too much stuff for granted, I suppose.
Yeah.
Can you get that whole question over? I got way off track. No, I'm serious. Can you do it over?
Okay, well, fascinating to watch two simultaneous and opposite trends. In reference, number one, in reference, people want answers, not a sandbox, right? And then in gaming, people develop their own new learning styles. So I think it's the same, sort of the same question that we were asking about, sort of that information and then the learning process. Sort of.
But don't libraries have more than one function? I mean, there's seldom a time when that I need to give somebody an answer, like 53. Often I need
42.
But occasionally I do that, and then other times we do other things. I don't see them as fighting each other. I don't see them as a dichotomy. I see the many functions of libraries. One of them is giving answers, and one of them is providing an opportunity to play and explore, and another is an opportunity to do inquiry and discover the right articles, the right ebooks, the right print books, whatever it is that will help me develop questions and solve big problems.
Yeah, I think that one of the values of libraries is that there's all this great different stuff going on. So there's people who have these very clear-cut questions and they want to answer, and they're learning from that experience and that transaction. There's also all this other, there's group work happening, there's programs, there's different learning opportunities where a different kind of style of learning is going on.
And I hope those people who want the quick answers will stop by and make some other discoveries.
Michael, are there more questions from our online students?
More than normally.
More than normally.
I do have one thing on this walk. When I talk about libraries and as the biggest whole, on the whole, when we think back all the way to the Library of Alexandria, right? That was just sort of the height of like what was great about humanity, and I think it's the same today. I don't think we're that much different from the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. It's just we've got a bunch of new media, and it's easier for us to connect, but it's still like a really human thing.
Inviting some additional questions. I love it that we have more than usual questions.
The online community is very active tonight. Stephanie Mason wants to know whether or not the panel feels if information literacy for K through 12 students have you seen an improvement in those skills as a result of the use of the web? I know for me, when I think of information literacy, I mean, I work part-time at Essex County College. I think in terms of what students are, some of the things you mentioned, Joyce, like research, being able to cite things, being able to properly, and maybe you can speak up in that respect, I guess, maybe. Information literacy.
I'm going to make a plug. I think when you have a strong librarian in a school, you see information literate students, and when you don't, you don't.
Might be some research that shows that.
I wish I had some research.
I'm looking at Ross Todd in the audience.
There is a bit out there.
There's loads of research that shows a direct correlation.
Check our website at the Centre for International Scholarship in School Libraries, CISL. CISL.rutgers.edu. We've got lots of our New Jersey research there, looking at learning outcomes with kids and information literacy.
Just for the video and the people online, Ross is suggesting that you look at the CISL website, CISSL at Rutgers.
No, CISL.Rutgers.
Oh, CISL.Rutgers.edu.
And I do think that this is a serious equity issue, and I see students who do not have any of this training, access to a librarian or access to any of the resources that my students have on a regular basis.
Can I say two things? When I was I was in a public children's library, right? I set up our public library I got it listed as a continuing education institution. So I have the school librarians and the language arts people come out on their in-service days to the public library. We would work on their summer reading list and their reading activities, their literacy stuff. which is not completely infolit, but it's getting there. And I think that was a really great way for the public library and the school library to bridge it. And now that I'm in academia, I have really pushed those same skills sort of on a broader level, using ACRL's like list of information literacy skills into our general education program. And I want to take a little bit of credit. We're going to adopt by 2014 at my university a new general ed program that, like, I want to say I did half of. You know what I mean? And so that's all really cool for a librarian to influence this stuff. You don't need the credit for the work. I'll take the credit here. You don't need the credit in the community if you really care about like the stuff behind the scenes. And so there's opportunity for all three of us to be working together.
You know, but I'm just going to push back at you for 1 second though, because I think you do need to step up and you do need to take credit.
Oh, yeah.
And I think not just here, you know, hopefully are.
Well,
in the academic community, that people know that you've had a hand.
Well, they do. I mean, they know me now. That's what I said in my opening thing.
Okay.
That those are the things that really, and now when they have a question about X, Y, Z, they're not going to academic computing. They're not going to the IT department. They're coming to the library, and that's really something really interesting to think about how a good librarian can shift the role of the library in a larger community.
Absolutely, because I have a feeling a lot of times we are not taking that kind of credit. We're working a lot of times behind the scenes at whatever kind of library it is, and not stepping up and saying, look, this is again that value added kind of thing that our library has brought to the table. What is it that it does mean? What does it mean to be an information professional who's fully engaged in that community?
And since we're talking about tech trends today, I mean, I think that we're looking at new ways to look at information literacy. How do you use Twitter as a research tool for current events? How do you tell a story that is going to make an impact on your world, like Malala did? How are you going to use the tools of your time to communicate what you've learned and solve problems? And so it's different from the what I used to teach and think about 10 years ago, because the potential is so much greater for kids to make a difference.
Do you have another question, Michael?
I'm going to actually plug one question of my own, and then I'm going to go back to the online students and write down some more questions. I have a question for the panel. What does open access repository development mean in your own environments? Because I think that I often hear a lot of times when I talk to young people about how they want to write, how they want to express themselves. Is there an opportunity to build writing from an open access perspective in a repository environment within the environments that you work in? Because that's the direction I'm going to take in my own career.
Well, yeah, personally, like I said, about my institution, I have a really non-traditional student base. These are people that are, they're not 18 years old right out of high school. They have jobs, they have kids. They're going to school to maybe get ahead in life. So my experience in that is like, I have a really very kind of basic librarian job. Like, I'm really just not doing all those cool things you guys are doing. I'm just trying to help people with their life, just try to, it's cool, oh no, it's great, but I wish I could answer that, but that's not something that I can do right now with the type of community that I am serving.
I guess I'm having trouble. I have to admit, I'm not really sure what that term means. I know what open educational resources are. I know what open source is. Open access. I know what directory of open access journals are. But what's open access repositories?
Well, I can you want to come back over here with the mic and answer? More and more, especially in the world of academia, scholars are depositing their work, their data in open access, so that, in other words, it doesn't go through the publishing.
Right. Gotcha.
It goes right into a depository where then other people can maybe use their data. Now, funding agencies like National Science Foundation, NSF, is actually requiring that anybody gets a grant, puts their data into an open repository so that it can be open access because it's being paid for by the citizens of the United States, that kind of stuff. So it's a very big question right now in academic libraries.
This is so non-academic, it's going to sound silly, but at my library, kids have written books with adults, and we actually have the kids' books in the collection, and they can come in and check their book out, and I feel like that's totally an open access repository.
It's like without any barriers, like you have to sign up or pay a subscription, or it's just kind of out there on the web.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I understand. I just that term is unfamiliar to me. But on the baby level, the training wheels level, we're having our students put Creative Commons licensing on pretty much everything they do. So they're considering how others will use the work that they create.
Okay, what we'd like to do.
One more question.
Oh, you want one more question?
One more question.
Okay. Michael, do you have other questions from the online people? I have one. I have, I think, one more that we haven't really covered. Just sort of
it's not
related.
ebooks.
No.
Oh, never mind. We don't have any more questions.
No, but I think it has to come up.
You can read it from here, right?
It has
There's
to.
one more from the online community.
No, I couldn't. I just guessed.
One of the students wants to know what types of innovations have come out of the makerspace.
What types of innovations have come out of makerspace?
Charlie Jackson.
Well, we just launched January 26th, but it's been a really good experience so far. We have one of the things that I feel like as we explore this and figure it out, one of the things that's become immediately so important is the importance of partnerships and collaboration. Because very quickly we reached sort of the limit at what the staff's tech skills were with all these different projects. And so what we've been doing is trying to partner with people in the community. And for example, with the digital music creation, we have a Piscataway high school student named Christian who comes, and he's starting to become our kind of student music producer. And what we'd like to do is to get him in the space, and so maybe he has a shift, like maybe it's twice a month, Tuesdays 6 to 8. And we did our first shift with that, and a younger student in 6th grade came in and worked with him for about an hour in the studio. And what the 6th grader actually wanted to do was to make a dubstep song. So he had a good time. He made a little bit of a song, and I see the importance of really connecting with people in the community and having this be a community space, and not really the library is kind of hosting it and we're setting up access, but really the community is engaging and learning from it.
Okay, so I think what we want to do now is kind of have a little bit of time for each one of the panelists to give perhaps any reflections or anything that you want to add that hasn't come up yet. So, JP, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. Well, it kind of came up a lot. One thing that's really valuable is making like the personal connections and building some relationships. That's something that I didn't necessarily do in library school like I should have. So I want to invite everyone after this. We're all going to go over to Olive Branch. You know where that is? It's like the closest bar to here. It's like the bar right behind the gym. So it's like 3 blocks. So we're going to be there probably all night. If you guys want to come, I gotta say, I slacked this year, but last year we did this every single Wednesday night for like the entire school year. We just all hung out there every Wednesday night. We all slacked this year, but come hang out, because I feel like a lot of the people, this was Alan's idea from years ago, and we've been doing it for a couple years now. And I feel like a lot of the things now that I'm working on are things that started in conversations that we had out at Olive Branch, or we would go to Old Bay. I don't know if you've been there. And like, so we talk about it, and then like later on, now all of a sudden we're working together. So like going back to that authenticity thing I said about like, what should you have? You should be authentic. I think that's one of the best ways to like make a really authentic connection with each other, is to just like know this person's name and know that a lot of us are probably going to be sticking around in New Jersey, and so we'll be working together for 20 years maybe. And so like building these relationships now is gonna just be real valuable in the future, and a bunch of people who aren't here are allegedly coming too, so it'll be fun. That's my closing remarks.
What was kind of nice about that stuff, I only got to go a couple times, but that it was a lot of area librarians as well as library students.
Right.
So it was like a really very informal networking opportunity to kind of just get to meet people and so forth. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we did play games.
Yeah, fun. You know,
Scrabble slam.
Yeah, one thing I always say, you know, we talked a lot of really heavy stuff, but one thing to always keep in mind is that quote from Dr. Seuss from, it's from One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. He just say fun is good. And like, one problem I find, librarians get real heavy, and we got real heavy tonight, and it's okay to just have some fun. So, like, if
drinking now.
Yeah, well, join. If you're not down with that, don't join the think tank. Because we have our virtual. Yeah, if you guys are go in think tank, post your drink pictures if you guys are online.
People come and drink soda as well.
Just drink soda, drink water, whatever you're drinking, that's fine. But just keep in mind that it's okay to have some fun, and that's one of those other things that we really didn't touch on. Like in the end, the libraries is the only fun part of the, like, you know, publicly funded anything, I feel like. Maybe the parks. But like, what else do we publicly fund? Like the firemen and like the DMV, and like nobody wants to go to the post office. You know, so libraries are the only fun thing we got going. So let's keep that momentum.
Well, and I think what JP is talking about is participation, and you know, whether it's online, it's online communities, or whether it's coming out to networking events or NJLA or ALA, you know, it's just about coming out. When I was in library school, I remember thinking that 95% of it was really just showing up and smiling, and you know, that got me a lot of opportunities, just kind of being there in conversations, you know, wherever those conversations happen to be.
It goes back to what I was talking about this being game, you know, to say, oh, you know, I'm game for that, you know, I could do that, and you know, so what? And who cares, you know? And so if you can have a good time, I've been to the house.
Oh yeah. You've been to the house a couple times.
I'm still recovering from the last time.
Yeah.
Yes, I have the thing that says party hard, make it happen. I have the badge, you know, that you can only get at the house and things like that. And you know, I mean, I always come escorted by 3 or 4 big guys, you know, and that way I feel safe. But you know, this is the kind of thing where you say, well, look. We're in this together, we're going to build this future together, and we're going to have most of our innovation in that moment when we are participating with one another. But Joyce, I want to give you that opportunity to say your conclusion.
Yeah, I conclude that I really like New Jersey a lot, and I want to join the think tank.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you. I think it's never been easier than it is today to be a better librarian. We're learning from each other, we're learning how to build better libraries, and the information's out there as we connect and network with each other, and I'm just eager to continue to learn from you all, and thanks for having me tonight.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
That sounds like a good concluding note.
Marie, would you like to add a reflection, or did you reflect on
I think I did already, but
all right, everyone, well, that was our panel. Let's give everyone a round of applause.